Welcome back. It is Tuesday, July 15th. Fantasy football today. We're doing tiers this week, quarterbacks yesterday. Today, we're tackling running backs. I'm Adam Azer with Jamie Eisenberg, who you heard yesterday. Heath Cummings is back. Welcome back, Heath.
Hey, I'm just trying to picture you tackling running backs. It's really something enjoyable.
I didn't even try to make that joke. It just kind of happened. How was your live draft?
It was fantastic, hectic. Lots and lots of fun. Had some really great people there in Kansas City. It's a different experience doing the Scott Fishbowl draft live because none of us really know what we're doing in this format. That's kind of Scott's purpose with the lineups and the scoring system, and then to do it live with everybody looking at you, it's a lot of fun.
It is a wild format to have no positional requirements. You can start at most 2 quarterbacks. You can start 0 quarterbacks. You can start up to 9 running backs or wide receivers. Ian Hartitz is here today. Hartitz, I already said it wrong. Ian Hartitz is here today. He is the senior fantasy football writer for Fantasy Life. He is also going to be an FFT Open manager. You can bid to be, or not bid, you can purchase a spot in his league beginning next Monday, the 21st at 7 p.m. Eastern. Welcome to Fantasy Football Today. Ian, do I have to call you Nick Westbrook-Akinde? Had 9 touchdowns last year. That is your title on screen here.
I just like to remind people, man, what a special season. More than Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle combined. Can you believe that world that we were living in last year? But no, guys, it's great to be here. My Scott Fishbowl draft, unfortunately, been dragging a little bit. I think we're only through 8 rounds, so kind of wish I would have knocked it out in one day. Jealous of Heath up there. But no, guys, excited to talk some RBs.
Somebody got kicked out of my Scott Fishbowl draft because he missed his first pick.
And it wasn't you.
It was not me.
Wow.
Thankfully, there's a few guys in the league or girls who remind everyone when they're on the clock, and I haven't missed a single pick yet. So thank you.
We have we're only through 9 in ours, Ian, and we have, there's always, like you said, there's always somebody who's doing a great job reminding people. The back half of our draft, which I'm the 11th pick, we fly through that quickly. The front half takes 3 days. It's actually incredible.
Ian, do you have a running back strategy this year, a way to approach the position, a way that you look at the position? Because obviously last year was such a good year for running backs. Just in general, and we'll go through the tiers in a little bit. How are you approaching running back this season?
I will say the big thing I learned was last year just getting a little too cute in round 2 in terms of having guys like Chris Olave, Jalen Waddle, maybe your Garrett Wilsons of the world, find enough wide receivers, not even saying they were necessarily ranked all that wrong just in terms of the wide receiver rankings themselves. But when you got guys like Jonathan Taylor, and in last year's case, Saquon freaking Barkley, just give me the running back that's going to see 300-plus touches with any semblance of good health out here over the wide receiver who we're hopeful can give us something. So I guess that would be my main lesson. And, I do think sometimes best ball kind of fever gets in my mind a little bit going into redraft where I'm just so focused on loading up at wide receiver. It's okay to be balanced in the year 2025. High T, grab me a couple RBs early. Let's see what happens.
That's interesting. So who is that Chris Olave player this year? Like, is that Ladd McConkey? I'm just looking at some ADP. Is that, I don't know, Drake London maybe, who was really
I think
good.
it's right after McConkey. It's London, AJB, and McConkey, however when you order those guys. After that is when we start getting one sort of, I don't even want to say red flag, but orangish flag after another. Rashee Rice coming back from the injury. T. Higgins obviously going to be working alongside Jamar Chase. Is he going to score quite as many touchdowns this year? We'll see what happens. Tyreek Hill, Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr. Again, not saying they don't deserve to be top 15 wide receivers, but once we're putting those guys up against the Jonathan Taylors, the Josh Jacobs of the world, I'm taking the RB more times than not.
I think that's pretty good advice. Jamie, Heath?
Yeah. I would agree. I think, we talk about this. There's a drop off at the receiver position where the running backs seem to, have that a little bit longer leash of just, proven, I guess is a way to describe it, before we get to the rookies in some cases past Genty. So it makes sense, and it really depends on how you draft. It's why I think, we continue to see a move for the last few years towards hero RB, where you're getting that one anchor running back and then sort of, waiting to, sort of build it out at that position. And you could do it a little bit easier this year because of the rookie class and how they sort of populated the position a little bit more. So it absolutely makes sense when you're in that, start of the dead zone, essentially, to stay away from those receivers. and still, I guess maybe not dead zone, but to stay away from those the receiver dead zone, and stay away from those guys and start to take those running backs that are still on the board.
Yeah. If you want to stray from that, if you really like those wide receivers and you're feeling like we're shaming you, the good news is round 3's got some very good running backs too. So if you want to take a wide receiver in round 2, you can still get Chase Brown. You can still get Kyron Williams, Breece Hall, James Cook in round 3. Not obviously.
Ken Walker should be there too.
Ken Walker is going to be a round 4 pick, so Alvin Kamara is going to be a round 4 pick. Joe Mixon, we're going to talk about later. He could be a round 4 or 5 pick. So anyway, we'll get into all that. Some quick news and notes. Actually, before we do that, let's talk about the Draftathon. I am now ready to reveal more details about the FFT Open, but go to tinyurl.com/2025FFT. First things first, you want to get your mailbag questions answered on Friday. Go ahead and purchase that for $50. It all goes to St. Jude. We're over $2,000 raised so far. We've also got a mock draft that you can join. I think next Tuesday we're drafting. So yeah, there's a lot there, but also we've got we have the look at that, the Dynasty League. There's going to be a Dynasty League. There's spots in the Dynasty League that Heath is running. Like, I can't even go through all of the things that are available right now, but the FFT Open spots, all right, 24 leagues. There's my division. Dave's, Heath's, Jamie's, Chris Towers, Jacob Gibbs, Dan Schneier's division, Chip Patterson from our Cover 3 podcast, Alfredo Brown, you heard him last week, Dwayne McFarland, who works with Ian at Fantasy Life. Ian's got a league that'll be up on Monday night. Katie Mox, John Breach from CBS, Mackenzie Brooks, Jake Seeley, Kendall Valenzuela, and Adam Ronis. Those are a lot of Fantasy Life members as well. Lige Duzable, Mike McClure, Sia Najad, Thomas Schaefer, you know him, Tom Fornelli, and Scott Fish, and Tom Grassi, who's a Packers super fan, has his Packers podcast, and he's going to be doing an FFT Open League as well. So
I want to do this, though, with our guests. It's awesome that Ian's joining us for the FFT Open, but throw the graphic back up of the 4 of us. Now, Ian, you and I met each other in person for the first time at the Flex Draft last year, so you know how tall I am. You see the graphic. We're all the same height in the graphics. How do you think we are from a height perspective? Dave, me, Adam, and Heath. Who do you think is the tallest or the shortest?
Dave's a pretty big dude. Is he the tallest?
You give us all your 4 guesses, like rank them, and then we'll
Dave, Heath, Jamie, in that order.
And then me last.
And then Adam last. Sorry, bro.
Look how tall I am.
You nailed it.
$3.
Yeah.
Oh no,
he on the rap sheet box. Have you guys ever seen that?
He almost nailed it. He had more than 2 minutes.
Heath is taller than Dave. Yes.
Yeah, you did really well. Good job. Yeah, I'm quite.
We had Alfredo Brown on last week, and he said it was Heath first?
No, me first.
No, you weren't first. You were second.
I was second.
Listen, I've met Alfredo several times. If he thinks Adam's taller than me, then he has absolutely no idea how to judge Adam.
He said Heath first because Dave was last.
Okay, Heath, me, JB, Dave. Okay, yeah, terrible guess. Also, listen to Podcast Awards. So we got the Podcast Awards are up now, and you can go to podcastawards.com and just find, podcastawards.com/app/sign up, I believe. Did I memorize that? Whammy! Yes. And then just nominate fantasy football today. We're in the sports category. It takes about 30 to 60 seconds. Podcastawards.com or podcastawards.com/app/sign up. We won this last year. Let's repeat. Please nominate fantasy football today in the sports category. All right, news and notes. We'll talk about Garrett Wilson tomorrow because we're doing wide receiver tiers, but he just got a 4-year, $130 million extension with $90 million guaranteed. Najee Harris should be back soon for the Chargers, but Mike Williams started training camp on the PUP list. We're not going to panic about PUP list. It's July 15th, and guys can come off the PUP list whenever they want, whenever they're ready. And then you got Shamar Stewart, first-round pick for the Bengals, edge rusher. Bud Elliott on our Cover 3 podcast and CBS Sports Podcast Network. He said that Shamar Stewart thinks he might be able to return to college football this year. The Bengals are really playing with fire with the way they're handling the Shamar Stewart.
What they do.
It is what they do. All right, let's get into the running back tiers here. And Jamie, you got your tiers published on the website. We're going to use your tiers. Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Saquon Barkley, and Christian McCaffrey are in tier 1. Bijan, Gibbs, Barkley, McCaffrey. And then in tier 2, it's Achane, Genty, and Derrick Henry. These are all players we expect to come off the board within the first 15 picks or so.
Yep.
But tier 1 is Bijan, Gibbs, Barkley, McCaffrey. Tier 2 is Achane, Genty, and Henry. I can't throw it to Heath yet because I'm not ready for that chaos because I know he's got some differences of opinion.
Yeah. I think Ian's going to bring some chaos also.
All right. So, Ian, what do you think about tier 1 and tier 2 here?
I think he's got the right 7 guys overall. I got Achane as my overall RB4, just, tiebreaker with CMC, give me the slightly younger guy and everything. But I think Genty is a really interesting one. He's someone that I've had as high as RB3 and as low as the RB7, during this process. The tiebreaker for me, because I just hear people say like, oh, but Genty is so talented and all this. Do you see him at Boise? Yeah, of course. Look at every running back on this list. We are talking about the cream of the crop after all. They're all going to see all sorts of touches. So for me, the tiebreaker was just, you can look at the early, Vegas implied lines. But this Raiders offense, even with Geno Smith, even with Pete Carroll, Chip Kelly, and the improvements, still being set up and expecting to be a bottom 10 scoring unit in the league. Meanwhile, okay, the Dolphins, the Falcons, maybe not world-beating groups, but we at least have seen ceilings from them. So for me, the tiebreaker here with Genty is just a situation where, again, not fully trusting that touchdown upside relative to the rest of these dudes. But then again, pretty hard to bust with, 350 plus touches. Guys, everyone loves to throw out the Trent Richardson thing. He still finished as the RB5 in PPR points per game as a rookie. Obviously went south after that. But again, very difficult to bust in any sort of meaningful way. But man, going up against guys like Henry, Achane, CMC, Genty is, going to be RB7 for me.
Yeah, I want to look up. Fournette was another guy who was ballyhooed, right, coming out of college and top 10 pick. Yeah, no, word of the day. He finished as RB8 per game as a rookie, and he had an interesting career. But with that kind of draft capital, you're just going to get so many touches. Fournette had 268 carries and 36 catches in only 13 games. All right, Heath. Yeah, go ahead.
Before Heath causes chaos, just because we're not going to probably talk about him a lot because it's just Jahmyr Gibbs. What was the thing you said yesterday with the start of training camp coming? What are we going to hear a lot of, Adam?
Best shape of his life.
You know what the second thing we're going to hear a lot of?
He's going to be used more in the passing game.
Yep. And what did Jahmyr Gibbs say yesterday?
Did he say that?
He's getting split out wide. Never happened before in this offense to this level.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, most running back catches are going to be coming out of the backfield.
No, but that's the other narrative we hear, right?
Yeah, no, it's true. And I think it's interesting because, you talk about touches with Bijan, Barkley, McCaffrey, Genty, Henry. They're going to be there. Gibbs and Achane, I do wonder. Achane was on pace. Let's see. Let me get his pace with Tua. It was 221 carries and 104 catches. Jahmyr Gibbs, his pace with David Montgomery was 226 carries and only 47 catches. Is it possible that Jahmyr Gibbs has the fewest touches, Heath, of these top 7 running backs?
Oh, yeah. I think whether Jahmyr Gibbs justifies being in tier 1 may just be as simple as how many games does David Montgomery play. I think he's a borderline tier 1 guy with Montgomery, and he's maybe the RB1 overall without Montgomery. And Montgomery's at the age and has the history that you can expect him to maybe miss some time. The Lions, we've talked about them too much, and it's because they were so much better than everybody else offensively last year. And we got the Ben Johnson situation, but even without that, it's just fascinating to think of. We're going to split Jahmyr Gibbs out more wide. We're going to throw the ball more to him. And Jameson Williams is about ready to have a breakout year. And Sam Laporte is going to bounce back. And Amon-Ra St. Brown is a surefire first-round pick. And Jared Goff's QB 18. It doesn't make any sense. But no, I would agree with you. And I kind of tried to look at it just not necessarily from my rankings perspective because we've already got that with Jamie. So I just kind of went with my projections. All 7 of these guys would be in my top 2 tiers. The one thing I would really disagree with is that Achane should be in tier 1. I think for as many games that Tua and David Montgomery are healthy, Achane's going to be better than Jahmyr Gibbs. And if Tua plays 17 games, Achane might be that. We shouldn't be surprised at all if he's the highest scoring running back in full PPR and leads running backs in catches. The other thing, just from a perspective of projections, and I understand we're just constantly trying to minimize him, and he's not going to be drafted in this range. But in terms of projections, Kyren Williams should be in tier 2.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
I know everybody
No,
hates him. It's no fun at all. He's only going to average 4 yards per carry. He's only going to catch 35 passes. But I'm just so I don't have the energy to discount Kyron Williams because of a day 3 running back in the most concentrated offense in football when they just keep feeding him despite everybody's concerns.
Yeah.
So where are you drafting Kyron?
Right. No, I'm just going to say, he's going like late in the 3rd round. I just can't understand why people are so low on him. But Heath, where are you drafting Kyron?
2-3 turn. I'd kind of mapped out where my Scott Fishbowl draft was going to go, and I was certain I was taking Kyron Williams at 24, just because he always seems to fall. And then Puka fell to 24, so I didn't get Kyron Williams. But no, I pretty much always take Kyron at the 2-3 turn when I have a pick in that range.
Jamie, your response to Achane, he should be in tier 1. He could be the number 1 running back in the games, which he basically was last year when Tua was healthy. After this break, we're going to find out what Jamie thinks about putting Achane in tier 1, and then we're going to come back and move on to tier 3. We'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today.
I wasn't ready to die.
The wait is over.
I need to know what happened.
Discover the mystery everyone's been talking about. School Spirits, every episode of all seasons now streaming on Paramount+.
I will just finish with this. So everyone's in agreement. These 7 running backs should be in tiers 1 and 2. Bijan, Gibbs, Barkley, McCaffrey. I don't know if this is the show to say, who's your number 1 runner. I'll ask Ian in a minute, who's your number 1 running back. And then tier 2 for Jamie is Achane, Gentry, and Henry. You did hear Heath say Kyron should be in tier 2. You did hear Heath say Achane should be in tier 1. Jamie, thoughts on moving Achane? I mean, not that it really matters, but Achane into tier 1.
I think when you look at the top of any tiers list, it's a little bit harder to say this is the cutoff of this particular tier, because Ian said it best. All 7 of these guys have the chance to be studs. And, you said it, Adam, like top 15 overall picks. So you're talking about the best of the best. If you want to throw Kyron in this group, that's fine. You want to say Achane should be ahead of some of these guys. I'll tell you, we published this, I think it was either last Wednesday or Thursday. I went in and I edited it again last night and moved some guys around. And that's with nothing really changing. It's just, you asked us this question. I think it was just me and Dave. Why do you guys change your ranking so much when nothing's happening? Because we're doing drafts and we're seeing how this sort of puzzle gets put together. Yeah. And so, yeah, I was staring at it last night. I'm like, do I really want Barkley 3rd? He makes me so nervous. Why do I want to keep him there? And that's probably the next change that's coming. So I think it's just a matter of, when you look at the top, it's really more of like a rank list as opposed to a tier list. So, where the cutoff is for one tier to the next, it sort of starts to, at least for me, make sense when we start to get a little bit further down.
Ian, who's your RB1?
It's Saquon, but it feels like when we had the Justin Jefferson Cooper Kupp debate, I think it was back, after the year where he had kind of Kupp still outperformed JJ. It was after the Triple Crown year, and it was like, well, Kupp's been better, but we are playing fantasy for this next year. So I'm jealous of Jamie having Bijan number 1. All right. I feel like I look at my rankings more and more, and I'm like, well, maybe I should go ahead and do that, because as much as I do think a lot of these 400 touch or what the curse of 365, some of these studies are just ridiculous, man. I've seen them actually include Le'Veon Bell's holdout numbers, Zeke's suspension numbers. So all that stuff aside, there is something to be said about Saquon. His role not exactly being as good as someone like Bijan Robinson, okay? Yes, he can rip off the 50-yard touchdown at a moment's notice, and he is arguably the single best running back in the league, but the pass-catching ability, we see it. It's going to be a run-first offense in Philly. When they want to throw the ball, AJB and Devonta Smith are going to do their thing. And yes, with the tush-push being back, Saquon, guys, got stopped at the 1-yard line and did not score a league-high 9 times last year. So, again, didn't impact him. He still racked up plenty of points. But again, we kind of saw those red flags come to fruition when you do take into account the workload and the age, things that, again, I wouldn't be purely fading on. But let's face it, I would say Saquon's probably a little bit more injury prone than Bijan Robinson. So it's close enough at the top for me to go ahead and maybe change those ranks like Jamie's talking about. But no, I love the point where, again, it's kind of getting into draft room, because it's one thing to be sitting behind your computer, moving the Excel sheet around. It's another thing to be on that draft clock, man. That's when the real kind of rankings and ideas come out.
Yeah, I know. I love it. And real drafts, not just mock drafts. When it actually counts, feet to the fire. Saquon Barkley, 4 touchdown runs of 65 or more yards last season. That's the most since at least 2010. I didn't feel like going back any further. It might be the most ever. Crazy good year for him. Okay, let's go to tier 3 and tier 4.
That should be your next name on whatever podcast you do next. Saquon Barkley stopped at the 1 9 times.
Well, it was Miles Sanders the year before, or no, it's DeAndre Swift the year before. Same thing happened to him, and that's the thing about Barkley is as great of a year as he had, he didn't have that many touchdowns, right? What did he have? 13 rushing touchdowns. I don't know if he had any receiving. That wasn't what got him to be the best running back in fantasy. All right. Anyway, tier 3, we've got some really good players in tiers 3 and 4. A lot of second-round picks, third-round picks, and according to ADP, Ken Walker going to get into the 4th round. He's in tier 4. But tier 3 is Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, Chase Brown, and Bucky Irving. Tier 4 is Kyron Williams, James Cook, and Ken Walker. These are Jamie's tiers. Tier 3, Jacobs, Taylor, Chase Brown, Bucky Irving. Tier 4, Kyron Williams, James Cook, Ken Walker. Jamie, are you cool with any of these 7 running backs? And this would be 14 running backs off the board. Any of them being your number 1 first running back selected on your team?
100%. I think if you go, any of the 6, 7 wide receivers we may see in the first round, 8 depending on where you have AJ Brown, then you're looking these guys. So I have tier 3 as the guys I would take in round 2, and tier 4 the guys I would take. Kyron's early round 3 for me, which is why he's so low. And then James Cook and Ken Walker back end of round 3 guys. So these are obviously hero RB anchor guys that you can, if you go wide receiver, tight end, if you are so inclined, I wouldn't do it, but to take a quarterback in rounds 1 or 2, absolutely. So it's clearly a sliding scale. Heath has more confidence in Kyron Williams than I do, just from where he would rank him and draft him, or I guess we're drafting him in sort of the same range, but I think, once you get to James Cook, Ken Walker, you feel a little bit more nervous about it just because can Cook score as many touchdowns as he did a year ago? Can Walker finally stay healthy? But these other guys, even Chase Brown and Bucky Irving with the 1-year sample size, I think they're still set up for such huge seasons that I would absolutely be comfortable, taking a Justin Jefferson, Chase Brown start to my draft for sure.
Heath, your thoughts on tiers 3 and 4, other than obviously you're higher on Kyron, who's in tier 4. So again, I know if you're watching the show, it might be annoying that I'm repeating it. If you're listening, I know it's easy to miss these things. Jacobs, Taylor, Chase Brown, Bucky Irving in tier 3, Kyron, Cook, Ken Walker in tier 4.
So complete agreement with the tier 3 guys. I've got 5 guys in tier 3, and those are 4 of them. I'd put Ken Walker in that range too. Maybe I'm a little bit too optimistic about Kubiak or Walker staying healthy, but I think he could be an absolute monster this year. So I'd put Walker up there in tier 3. I've obviously got tier 4. I don't know that we have any of the same guys because I've got Kyron two tiers higher. I've got Walker 1 tier higher. And I am, like, as one of the biggest James Cook backers last year, I'm terrified because the breakout did not happen at all in the way that I was thinking it was going to. He just scored a ton of touchdowns and actually had less work. I don't like obviously Josh Allen's so good, it may not matter what you decide to do offensively, but I just hate their offensive approach. It's slow, it's run heavy, but it's not one running back. And they didn't throw to their running backs very much last year. So I'm more scared of James Cook than this.
Okay. Who's tier 4 for you then?
Well, I would have, just strictly looking on a projections basis, Brees, Chuba, and Mixon.
Okay. So Ian, your thoughts on Jamie's tiers 3 and 4?
Yeah, the Kyron one's interesting. I'm actually the highest of any fantasy life ranker on him, my RB10. Someone that I wasn't drafting a ton going into last year because they drafted Blake Corum, just some of the coach speak going on. I thought that maybe McVay would start to have more of a committee system. But if it wasn't going to happen last year with Kyron putting up some of the worst efficiency numbers at the position and also coughing up the ball, 6 or 7 times throughout the year, I'm just not convinced that just because they used a day 3 pick on Jarquez Hunter that anything's actually going to change. All due respect to Hunter, I guess. But at the same time, guys, have we seen any rookie running back come out that draft Twitter and analysts didn't love? All right. And I get it. It's easier to be positive about all these guys and everything. Yeah. But the dude was a day 3 running back for a reason. The Rams have drafted a running back in each of the last 8 drafts. So it's not exactly a situation where I'm expecting the workload to change. I also do think there's a chance that we see Kyron Williams get an extension between now and the start of the season. Just trying to read between the lines. And a lot of it has just been McVay and Les Snead going, we like Kyron. No guarantees there. But I have a feeling a lot of people worried about Kyron if we do see him actually get not even a huge deal, but 4 years, $44 million, something like that. All of a sudden, Kyron Williams, I think you can put him right next to Josh Jacobs and Jonathan Taylor, because even that bad efficiency, maybe more of a one-year thing. He was averaging north of 5 yards per carry back in 2023. And look at that Rams offensive line last year, really did deal with one injury after another. So Kyron, Kenneth Walker, I actually have these guys ahead of dudes like Chase Brown and Bucky Irving, just because I don't want to be making bets on dudes just being that much more efficient with less overall volume.
Man, this Ian guy's really smart, Adam. It's a good choice.
Yeah, look, I mean, Ken Walker is the tough one, I think, for a lot of people. Like Dan Schneider does not like Ken Walker. Where's he finished? In PPR, his per game has been 17th, 21st, and 12th. And last year, he was only 12th per game because he caught so many balls, Ken Walker. But what if that goes away, especially because they want to run the ball more? Yeah, sure, he will benefit from that. But again, he's not in on third downs. He's not their 2-minute drill guy. So I don't think he's going to be, I think people might be let down by the catches if they're expecting anything similar to what we saw last year from Ken Walker.
I think you're right. Not to cut you off. I think you're right in that regard. What he was, we don't know what Kubiak's going to do with him.
And then the question is, like, how good is he? And how good is the offensive line? The offensive line needs to be better. He's, I don't know. I go on this. I just did this last week, so I don't want to keep having the same argument, but
just say Tyreek Hill and move on.
Yeah, I take Tyreek Hill over. No, not over everyone on this list, but most. All right. Anything else you guys want to say about these guys? Taylor, Jacobs, Brown, Irving. Yeah. All right. We've exhausted that. So these guys are good running backs. Jamie's comfortable with them as the anchor to his running back position if he wants to maybe go hero RB. And let's see if we feel that way with tiers 5 and 6, or are we running out of that type of player? So we had 14 running backs in the first 4 tiers. We get to tiers 5 and 6. This is a bigger tier. This has 5 players in it. Tier 6 has 4. So we're looking at 9 running backs. Breece Hall, Chuba Hubbard, Alvin Kamara, James Conner, and Joe Mixon. Breece Hall, Chuba Hubbard, Alvin Kamara, James Conner, Joe Mixon. That's tier 5. Tier 6 is 2 rookies, Hampton and Henderson, DeAndre Swift, and David Montgomery. A lot to digest here. Let's look at tier 5 first. Breece Hall, Chuba Hubbard, Alvin Kamara, James Conner, Joe Mixon. Jamie, what's the theme here with these guys?
It's the first really point where I get nervous about the position. So you have a lot of proven guys here, which is, exciting if they can keep it up. But you have age concerns, right? Because you have Kamara entering age 30. You have Conner age 30. You have Joe Mixon age 29. And will they do what they did again? Breece Hall has so much talent and so much upside, but his situation, I could see it going either way. I mean, Justin Fields steals so many rushing touchdowns and doesn't historically throw to his running backs to the same level I think that Breece Hall needs based on what we saw year 2 after the ACL, the start of last season. He was such a big part of the passing game, and he still might be. I mean, this receiving core is absolutely terrible. And will Justin Fields check down to him instead of running? That's a big question. How many touchdowns will he score? Ian talked about, the environment for some of the guys at the top, the Raiders in particular. Like, will they score enough touchdowns, this Jets offense? So it's a little bit concerning for me, but I could see Breece Hall having another standout season just because he's such a talented player. I'm curious about the competition for Chuba. I know they're not exciting guys, and I think Ian nailed it with, they drafted a rookie. Trevor Etienne is going to be awesome. But it's Trevor Etienne and it's Rico Dowdle, and Chuba was so successful last year behind, I think, one of the more underrated offensive lines in the game and a quarterback that's definitely improving. Kamara's offensive environment is probably the worst in the NFL. Conner, prior to last year, had missed basically 3 games, 5 of the previous 6 seasons, so can he stay healthy again? And I know he missed some time last year, but he played more games than he has really since Pittsburgh, I think. And Mixon, we talked about this yesterday, Adam. Like, you like him in round 4. For me, he's more of a, round 4 or 5 turn. I prefer him in round 5. I am concerned about the offensive line. I am concerned about potential competition for touches. Whether you think Nick Chubb is going to be good or not, he's going to get opportunities. And I do think that Woody Marks, another guy, hey, they drafted a rookie, is going to get some touches as well, more so than just what we saw last year for the guys that were on the field with him. So that's why they're in this spot for me. The upside is still there, but I see a little bit more downside, I guess, for this group.
Brees Hall, Chuba Hubbard, Alvin Kamara, James Conner, Joe Mixon. Ian, you see the same thing? You see question marks here?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, if you are starting off the team with this being your first running back, I mean, I really hope that you just got some stacked wide receivers and tight ends first 3 rounds. But, James Conner is the one where I do think that he's almost like become the RB version of Tyler Lockett, where every single year we just have him ranked in the ADPs, this low end RB2. Then every single year he ends up finishing, nearly as a top 15 player at the position. So Trey Benson is someone who, yes, maybe could carve out a little bit more in year 2, but really didn't see any signs of that. And then when you consider the extension that guys like Connor and even David Montgomery had gotten in the back half of last year, I think it's more wishful thinking than anything to believe that it's going to be overly changing for Connor. So that Cardinals rushing offense, particularly down the stretch last year, was really as good as anyone, outside of Baltimore. So James Conner for me would be the one guy kind of in this range that I would be a bit more optimistic and kind of firing up as that hero RB. Maybe Joe Mixon too. I don't love the fact that he's in a walking boot right now. It is still only July, so I'm not trying to freak out. One of you guys mentioned again, pup list right now, which he's not even on. So not trying to, get that voodoo going. But I do wonder if Nick Chubb could be a bit more of a thorn in the side than we're giving credit for. But then again, if we see the 2024 version of Nick Chubb in 2025, not going to be too big of an issue. So Connor, Mixon, those are the two guys where, again, projection wise, if things go right, they could go right in a big way. But I certainly see why they are this far down.
All right, Heath, how do you see it? Brees Hall, Hubbard, Kamara, Connor, Mixon. Would you be comfortable starting your team with this being your first running back?
I am uncomfortable with the fact that every time I look at any kind of ADP, my favorite player in each round is a running back for the first 4 rounds. But that's just the nature of how wide receivers are being drafted right now. So I don't ever really have the experience where one of these guys is my top running back. But I think by ADP, you're talking about not taking a running back until round 4 or round 5 now.
Yep.
And so, yeah, if I start my team, I get one of Bowers and McBride, and I have 2 top 12 wide receivers, then sure. Like any build will work. It just kind of depends. It's just that there's not very many of our drafts where you get the opportunity to do that. Certainly not in best ball. And so it's probably going to be more of the home league environment where everybody goes crazy on running backs and quarterbacks go early too. I think the interesting thing is like the Kamara, Connor, and Mixon, all 3 pretty similar to me in that it's really just a question of are they going to hit the wall? Or can they keep doing it? Like Connor's over 30 now. It used to be more terrifying than it is, but Derrick Henry says it's okay. Mixon's got the Chubb concerns. Kamara's got the terrible offense concerns. Although I kind of just think they're probably going to dump it off to him 100 times again, and he'll give us terrible efficiency and have so many catches that he finishes higher than we draft him.
Right.
I obviously am higher. I think Jamie actually is higher than consensus on DeAndre Swift. And I'm still higher than Jamie on DeAndre Swift. So it's definitely an area of, even if one of these guys are your number 2 running back, you may be a little more concerned about your number 3 than you normally would be.
If the draft unfolds in a way where you have gotten into round 4 or 5 and Brees Hall, Hubbard, Kamara, Connor, or Mixon is your first running back off the board, you're probably your first running back on your team. You're probably going to be dipping into tier 6 as well, and maybe tier 7. Are you going to build out some running backs? You don't want to wait too long to get your RB2 if these guys are your RB1. So tier 6 is Omarion Hampton, Travion Henderson, DeAndre Swift, and David Montgomery. It probably would have included RJ Harvey, maybe even tier 5 for Jamie before the J.K. Dobbins signing. But for now, tier 6 is Omarion Hampton, Travion Henderson, DeAndre Swift, and David Montgomery. Would you agree with that, Jamie, that if you don't love your RB1, then this is a great opportunity to get an RB2 that you like?
I think so. I mean, when you go the hero RB route, this is where you start to look for that second guy, unless you're just really want to play it out and see how far this can go. In tier 7s where you get I have the other 3 rookies ranked there, at least Judkins for now. We'll see how this all plays out. But, this is sort of where you start to see a shift in rankings versus ADP, and it kind of goes all over the place, right? Because everybody's going to have these guys in a similar range, based on, I think, most rank lists. Swift is going to be drafted much later. Hampton may be drafted much sooner, and as we see maybe a separation, as I wrote in the story, if we see a pretty big separation of what we're hearing out of Los Angeles, like Hampton's a tier 4 guy for me. He's got that much talent, so we could see him sort of just jump the veteran guys. And if he's going to be used as a feature back in a Jim Harbaugh, Greg Roman offense, like I just can't get past. It's kind of why I struggle with Joe Mixon and Hampton probably the most of in terms of veteran backups. Like I hate this, covering the NFL for so long. Like you see these veteran guys, they do everything the coach likes. They don't get hurt. They don't fumble. Chubb's in a different category at this point in his career, but this is kind of the Najee Harris story. Is he's going to get more playing time than we want. It's going to be if Hampton never got this, or if Hampton never got that, or if Najee didn't do this. I just feel like we're going to get that all season long. So, hopefully he's healthy with the eye situation and everything's okay with him, from that regard. But he's played every game of his career, and that I think is going to be a problem for Hampton. And again, he doesn't fumble, so he. You'll say this all the time, Adam. He doesn't have explosive runs, and he doesn't do a lot of things that are fun to watch. He doesn't have the 65-yard runs of Saquon Barkley. Hampton may have as many as Barkley did, if not more. But I think Najee's playing time is going to be a problem.
Yeah, I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs, I think, would have been pretty disappointing as a rookie if David Montgomery hadn't gotten hurt in weeks 7 and 8, I believe. Gibbs comes out in weeks 7 and 8 and just dominates. And then from that point on, it was a much more even split. Before that, he was really, really frustrating. There was another one that was like that. Was it Melvin Gordon's rookie year or someone?
We saw it happen with Greg Roman with the Ravens. J.K. Dobbins was averaging 6 yards per carry, and we still had Gus Bus and Mark Ingram racking up touches.
Who'd you say, Jamie? Was it someone with Melvin Gordon?
You said Gordon. He didn't score a touchdown his rookie season.
Yeah, but did they draft? I don't know. But it has happened before. So it's possible. First round picks, though, they usually get a lot of work, but maybe not like Rashad Penny.
It was Bijan and Algier. Same thing.
Yeah, that's true. Oh,
well,
God.
And like we're also talking about PPR leagues for these tiers, and I think the Hampton. I'm more excited about him in half PPR and would be a lot more if I was ever in a non-PPR league. They threw 55 passes to the running backs last year. And he's not going to have all of that work. Like he might be a 20 catch guy.
Oh, Hampton?
Yeah.
I hope not. I mean,
it's not like there's a long history of Greg Roman throwing to his running backs at all.
Dobbins was on pace for 41 catches if you remove week 12, which he left with an injury. So the other running backs, I mean, like you're not going to throw to Gus Edwards. So hopefully we can get 40.
And I'm not sure if Hampton and Harris are both available, and hope, like Jamie said, hopefully Najee's okay. I certainly don't think at the beginning of the year Hampton's going to be the guy playing on third downs.
Ian, what do you think here? What do you think about tier 6, Hampton, Henderson, Swift, Montgomery?
I do think it's curious how Najee's agent, all right, that's what we're going off of right now. His agent, like 6 days after the incident, it's like, yeah, he'll be fine for the season, for week 1. Doesn't sound great to me, guys. Again, so I hope he's okay too and everything, but like I wouldn't completely just, his agent said he's fine. Of course he's okay at this point in time. So if Hampton does get the chance to race up, I mean, man, like, again, Najee's in the fold. I am expecting him to be ready to go and everything. And if he wasn't, maybe they would address the position. But like, you could make an argument for Hampton if this was just his backfield, like right up there with Josh Jacobs and Jonathan Taylor. So not the reality we're living in, but hey, that is kind of the upside. I do think there's similar concerns with Trevion Henderson and Ramondre Stevenson. Like, you guys are old enough like me to know that Josh McDaniels doesn't always give us, the cleanest running back picture. So for every year that we do get Josh Jacobs just completely balling out, I think it was in 2022, just took over that whole backfield. That was great. But man, some of those previous years, just 3 different Patriots running backs involved during each and every season. And also not exactly expecting, the 2025 pass to resemble the squads that Tom Brady was engineering over the years. And Drake May has a little bit of that, Justin Fields to him as well, where he's going to be heavily involved in the rushing game. So Trevion Henderson, RJ Harvey, Caleb Johnson, all these guys are in pretty bad. Okay, I wouldn't say bad offense for Harvey, but Henderson, Caleb Johnson, and Quinshon Judkins, who has his own problems going on right now. Like, these have been guys where, yeah, sure, I like the profiles, and the talent, but they are in offenses that we don't expect to score points. And I think the competition is steep enough to continue to make them, 2 or 3 RB committees. So for me in that tier 6, it is DeAndre Swift who's standing out, because I just think it's been throughout this entire offseason. We kept waiting for the Bears to add someone else. They never did. Everyone tried to paint this picture that first year OC Ben Johnson was for some reason the guy who apparently ditched Swift out of Detroit. Never quite bought that. And hey, as much as Swift, maybe not the world's best running back or anything. I've seen the numbers. His vision leaves a lot to be desired sometimes. But if we're going to write off Caleb Williams' rookie season because of the scheme and the offensive line problems, I don't know. Maybe those are two things that kind of impacted the team's running back as well. So just again, looking at offenses that have improved and the offensive lines that have gotten a lot better and just projected touches for an explosive pass catching talent, DeAndre Swift is someone where I feel like with a better PR team, man, he could be going top of tier 5.
Oh, well, he should hire Heath. Heath would be his PR manager.
Yeah, I have him at the top of tier 5. So perfect.
Okay.
I will say just before we move on Henderson, and Ian's 100% right. So you hear me mention Najee doesn't fumble. Ramondre's got one of the biggest fumble issues in the league. And I could see that being a problem for a Mike Vrabel-led team, a Josh McDaniels-led offense. And you mentioned Drake May and his running ability. I think the offense is going to be better as a whole just because, again, better coaching and better talent around him. The receiving core has still a lot of questions for me. And what I think Henderson will do, and this is, like Heath was talking about, these are PPR tiers. He could be a significant receiver on this team, and that's the hope, so that's kind of why he's in this spot ahead of Harvey, for example, ahead of Caleb Johnson, and for now ahead of Judkins as well.
I have to convince myself more to draft TreVeyon Henderson. I don't really do it. I don't know if I really have it all in these mock drafts we've been doing, but he was my second favorite running back in this class. I'm not a talent evaluator, but I know an explosive player when I see it. He was so much better than Quinshon Judkins. I mean, it was ridiculous. They shared a backfield. They played behind the same offensive line. He was Jahmyr Gibbs to Judkins' David Montgomery. This guy needs the ball, TreVeyon Henderson. He is so good, and it won't take them long to figure out if they're going to do anything in the run game. They're going to get explosive plays on their offense. It's going to be through TreVeyon Henderson. And it's one of those things where you think about the projections and how it might work out. It may not be so obvious to you, the path, but if you just want to bet on talent, that's a guy that I'm going to bet on, TreVeyon Henderson. So tier 6 is a pretty exciting tier, in my opinion. And that was Hampton, Henderson, DeAndre Swift, and David Montgomery. The rest of the show is going to be a pretty exciting show, in my opinion. We're going to tell you about tiers 7 and beyond after this break on Fantasy Football Today.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ. Streaming free anywhere you are.
All right, moving on to tiers 7 and 8 here, and Jamie's running back tiers, which you can see on our website. Man, again, you got some starting running backs here for you. These could be RB2s for you. RJ Harvey, Quinshon Judkins. Bring it on back. RJ Harvey, there. Thank you. Quinshon Judkins, Caleb Johnson in tier 7. So the rest of the rookies. And then tier 8, Isaiah Pacheco. He'll be in tier 3 by the end of August. Tony Pollard and Aaron Jones. RJ Harvey, Quinshon Judkins, Caleb Johnson in tier 7. Pacheco, Pollard, and Aaron Jones in tier 8. So I guess, Jamie, you prefer the youth. You have those 3 rookies in tier 7 ahead of Pacheco, Pollard, and Jones in tier 8. And
I think we need to, I hate to make fun of Thomas, but we have to make fun of Thomas because as a Vikings fan.
Aaron Jones with the Packers logo. I don't know if did you make that, Thomas? You could admit it. Oh, he's not ready to admit it. Maybe you know what? Here's what I think happened. He threw the graphic up and then he took it down while I was reading it. I bet he saw it and was trying to fix it. And then I was like,
he wasn't a Vikings fan. I wouldn't point it out, but
I didn't even catch it. All right. Anyway, Jamie, Harvey, Judkins, Caleb Johnson in tier 7, Pacheco, Pollard, Aaron Jones in tier 8.
Yeah. And I think Ian was sort of alluding to this, like the upside for the rookies could be amazing. When you look at their situations can go either way, but it wouldn't be shocking by any stretch if Judkins, assuming, he's not suspended, is completely dominating that backfield. When you look at Dylan Sampson and what his role projects to be in Jerome Ford and kind of how he struggled in this lead role for the last, better part of the last 2 years, the Browns went out and, drafted Judkins ahead of a lot of the other rookies in this class for a reason, including Henderson. Caleb Johnson, a big physical running back in an Arthur Smith offense has kind of been what he's, always loved. Clearly he had Derrick Henry for the majority of that time in Tennessee when he was the offense coordinator there. But I think that's a great fit for, if you believe in vacated touches, 263 carries are on the table for, Caleb Johnson without Najee Harris there. Jalen Warren scares the hell out of me though. But RJ Harvey has got, I don't know how you guys felt about this. I know we've talked about this a little bit on the show. Like, I didn't want to overreact to J.K. Dobbins. He's such a talented player, and clearly the Broncos felt they were missing something. Is it more of an indictment on Estime and McLaughlin by comparison to maybe not trusting Harvey fully to be the lead rusher there? But we've seen two running backs excel in a Sean Payton offense before. I think Harvey's going to have an opportunity despite, Dobbins being on pace for 41 catches last year. Harvey should be the guy playing on passing downs. And the upside to me is immense. If Dobbins ever misses any time, shocking, that's happened before, then Harvey could be a top 15 caliber running back, in my opinion. So I didn't want to downgrade him too much. I certainly don't want to overreact and say it's not going to be, or not overreact and say it's not going to be an issue that Dobbins does take away a significant amount of touches. So I kind of put him in this spot of like a borderline RB2, flex. But he's someone that I try to target in almost every draft just because I think he's going to be a lot of fun, especially behind that offensive line and playing for Sean Payton.
As we look at this range, right, tiers 6 and 7, having all those rookie running backs in it, Hampton, Henderson, Harvey, Judkins, Johnson, Triple H, Double J. I think about last year, Ian, and last year had this reputation of this was the best wide receiver draft in a really long time. And lo and behold, you couldn't necessarily see it from Ladd McConkey. I mean, we were talking Ladd McConkey or Josh Palmer. Who do we like better last year? You couldn't necessarily see it for Brian Thomas Jr., Neighbors outperformed his ADP. It ended up being a great year for wide receivers. This is the best running back draft class, according to everyone, in so long. Right? Should we just forget about the competition and throw caution to the wind and make sure that we get some shares of these rookie running backs? That's kind of how I want to approach it. How do you feel about that, Ian?
I feel like the price is definitely closer to right for these guys. We're not having to take, an Amari and Hampton against more of a clear-cut workhorse back. I mean, even the guys in tier 8, Pacheco, Pollard, and Jones. Pacheco is someone I've drafted a ton, but, obviously there is a bit of a concern, like how much are we going to see him get back to the 2023 workhorse role? How much was his return from injury role? Maybe more of an indictment on what we see, but Pollard has Spears, Jones has Jordan Mason. Like at this point, I am more okay, taking that shot on the rookie talent, particularly with Harvey, man, because, we were talking about Dobbins and this Chargers offense that doesn't throw the football. We are talking full PPR, here, and you look at these Broncos offenses these last 2 years, Javonte Williams, Jaleel, Estime. These were not good pass-catching running backs, and they still managed to rank first and fourth over these past 2 seasons in terms of total receptions by running backs. So it is a situation where, similar to Josh McDaniels, we have seen some quirky running back uses from Sean Payton over the years. I am old enough to remember when Mark Ingram was a first-round pick, still wasn't able to carve out, that true big-time fantasy relevant role for, I think his first 2 or 3 seasons. When you got Chris Ivory and, all these guys getting the ball, you got to get them the ball, of course. But RJ Harvey, for me, similar to Joe Mixon, where, I wonder how much should I really be concerned with Dobbins and Chubb? Like, guys, if the Broncos had just drafted like a round 7 running back instead of signing J.K. Dobbins, I don't think we would be as concerned. Not saying that we should be treating Dobbins as that, round 7 guy, but clearly they did have a plan for Harvey. They have all these, available touches and targets there for him. So out of this group, again, Harvey and Pacheco really stand out for me.
Heath, your comparison of tier 7, Harvey, Judkins, Caleb Johnson, to the veterans in tier 8, Pacheco, Pollard, Aaron Jones.
I think the young guys have a lot more upside and the old guys have a lot higher floor. It's the easiest way to look at it. And like we draft for upside. And so we get more excited about taking the young guys. The one thing I will say, and I don't know how everybody's handling this if you're drafting fantasy football teams in July, but I've pretty much buried Judkins. I'm not at this moment in time, I'm not going to draft him anywhere close to this.
Because of the arrest.
Right.
Okay. All right. Let's go on to tiers 9 and 10. We've got Jalen Warren, Brian Robinson Jr., Travis Etienne, Javonte Williams, Ramondre Stevenson in tier 9. We've got 4 players in tier 10. I'll tell you those in a minute. But tier 9 is Jalen Warren, Brian Robinson Jr., Travis Etienne, Javonte Williams, and Ramondre Stevenson. A reminder that these are full PPR tiers, perhaps in non or half PPR. Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong. You'd have Brian Robinson over Jalen Warren, non and half PPR?
Yes.
Okay. So Warren, Brian Robinson, Etienne, Javonte, Ramondre Stevenson. Tier 10 is 2 giants, Tyrone Tracy and Cam Scatterbu. Najee Harris, and J.K. Dobbins. All right, what are we looking at here? Should these be RB3 or 4 on your team? Definitely don't want these to be your RB2. What are we looking at with tiers 9 and 10, Jamie?
Players that you don't really want, but you might be forced to take. I mean, Warren's kind of the swing guy for me, because it wouldn't be shocking if he's the better running back in Pittsburgh in this format, because I don't think we're going to see Caleb Johnson play on a lot of obvious passing downs. And Arthur Smith, we mentioned it, that when he had Bijan Robinson, who, as we're seeing with better coaching or different coaching, is an absolute stud. And he decided not to use that stud because he loves Tyler Algier. So he can make this a miserable experience for us. But Jaylen Warren's very good in pass protection. They have a 41-year-old quarterback, and we may see him, get more opportunities of those 263 vacated touches than we might expect. So I love the fact that he's dragging soccer goalposts around, and those training videos that we're seeing of Jaylen Warren, just something different, best shape of his life. But he's the one that could, sort of outperform this tier. I think along with probably Travis Etienne too. Look, he was, he's 2 years removed from an amazing season. He was obviously one of the biggest busts last year. His PPR points per game got cut in half, which is awful. And there is, pretty significant competition for touches when Tank Bigsby was a much better runner than him last year. And now you bring in Tootin, who's part of this new coaching staff, and new regime essentially. So it could be ugly for Etienne, but I think he's one of the better values based on what his upside can still be, because this offense should be dramatically better with Liam Cohen calling plays.
Okay. Is anybody excited to draft these guys? Jamie doesn't seem too excited. I can get excited on the potential for Javonte here. I think, yeah. All right. I'll just let
love
you
Javonte Williams.
Well,
I mean, you got to remember, though, we aren't comparing them against like top 24 wide receivers at this point. I mean, I don't think the pickings at other positions are all that hot either once we get to this range,
I just think when you look at what the Cowboys running back from last year,
Rico Dowdle.
Ian,
do you think Adam can name all 32 NFL head coaches?
I can now. Can Javonte Williams do that? I don't see why not. It's just a matter of him, looking good in training camp, and it's that Cowboys logo. When I look at this graphic, I look at that Cowboys logo and I say, I want the starting running back for that team. The fact that the starting running back for the Cowboys could be available in round 9 or later is exciting, I think, in a time when it's not that exciting to draft running backs.
No, I think the starting running back for the Cowboys will be available in round 9 or later. I don't have any clue who it is.
Yeah, right.
Hopefully
that's why they're available so cheap.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, I don't have a problem with Javonte at his cost. Warren and Etienne are pretty clearly my favorite two in this group. And listen, I think you can look at ADP at some places, and Etienne's going behind Tootin, and all 3 of the Jags running backs are outside of the top 100. I still think Etienne's, at least the pass catching role, is probably the safest bet, and then we'll figure out what happens on early downs. And I wouldn't be surprised if Jaylen Warren, especially in full PPR. In fact, I expect Jaylen Warren to be better than Caleb Johnson.
Tier 10, Tracy, Scadaboo, Najee, Dobbins. I guess I'll just throw out a hot take here. The one I definitely want is Dobbins. He's got arguably the best offensive line in football. He got a chance to be the running downs guy. Tracy and Scadaboo is going to be kind of ugly. Najee, I think we're just waiting for Hampton to take his role. But like Harvey could have a good role, but Dobbins could also have a good role. It could be like Ingram and Kamara. Ian, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, if we get into the preseason and all of a sudden Dobbins is getting these, great snap counts with the first team offense, who say he couldn't actually, be one of the bigger risers and get up there into the top 30. So I think a lot of these guys, though, in tier 9 and 10 alike, they profile these flex with benefits, sort of options. You're not going to be thrilled about starting Ramondre Stevenson or Najee Harris in weeks 1 through 2, but, they're still going to be inside of our top 36. If we're in one of these 14 team leagues with 2 or 3 flexes, you can wrap your mind around being okay okay with starting him. But hey, as much as we love to say, Jahmyr Gibbs, if he gets, the full backfield and David Montgomery gets hurt, the inverse of that is also true. Maybe it's not as sexy of a, thing to plan out like that. But Najee, if Hampton goes out, Ramondre, if Henderson goes out, these are guys that actually could, maybe not be top 5 running backs in the same way Gibbs would be, but honestly, potentially threatening that RB1 level in fantasy land. So I do think there's some sneaky, handcuff upside here. Jamie, I was curious if you gave any thoughts to Jordan Mason being in tier 10, based on what we've heard about him, maybe getting that goal line role and, certainly having some competition in Aaron Jones, but maybe seeing a bit more of a split backfield in Minnesota than last year.
One of my favorite guys, and another, again, like when we start to split these up, you see kind of where I went with the tier 11 guys, almost like the, maybe aside from Rashad White and Eckler, it's like I put these guys sort of in the lottery ticket category of, they probably need the full-time role to be starting fantasy options. But yeah, I mean, I it's kind of why I have Aaron Jones as low as I do, because I am very concerned that Jordan Mason is going to have a role. When Kevin O'Connell comes out before they re-signed Aaron Jones and says that he was probably better off in a committee as he was in Green Bay than he was for us in a full-time role last year, when he set all these career highs in touches and total yards and rushing yards. Like, he was so good for them. And I think the biggest thing that kind of gets overlooked with Jones and is a benefit to Mason, Jones played through 3 significant injuries last year, which he hadn't done in the last couple of years in Green Bay. I think part of that was the contract year. Part of that was proving himself to a new team. He also really benefited. If you recall, he got hurt in, I think it was the London game or wherever they were playing overseas, and they had a bye next week. And he came back after the bye. Like, there were some things that just sort of felt right for him that schedule-wise may not happen this year. So, you mentioned, Adam, the Dobbins situation. Like, if things go well for him and obviously he gets a chance if Harvey maybe gets injured, like Jordan Mason in this offense, he was really good in San Francisco's offense last year. It's like he may not catch a lot of passes, but I don't know if that matters based on how things may go here. And if JJ McCarthy sucks, obviously it's going to be bad for everybody. But if O'Connell's blueprint has showed us anything, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. This offense still going to be productive for the guys around it. The ecosystem's just so good. So yeah, Mason may be a little bit lower than he should be, but I think you can make a case for, Spears, for example, how good he was at times last year. You can make a case for, if you don't buy Bucky Irving taking that next step. Rashad White's been 50 catches, every year of his career and coming off a season with career high yards per carry. Eckler can still be very good in this format, especially looking at how he did in some cases last year when he was healthy. He really battled injuries last year, but he's older. So this is actually, I think I wrote this in a story. Like, this is my favorite tier. Tier 11 is like my favorite group of guys to draft, because like all these guys could be league winners. Like, I'm trying to get 2 or 3 of these guys in the fishbowl, because like, when you're in a best ball or a big tournament, like these are guys that could just sway everything for you if they get the chance to be starters.
Did we read the names or just, I'll go through it. Tier 11, Mason, Rashad White, Austin Eckler, Isaac Guerrero, Zach Charbonnet, and Tyjae Spears. This is a good show, by the way, to be watching on YouTube, youtube.com/fantasyfootball today. Mason, Rashad White, Austin Eckler, Isaac Guerrero, Zach Charbonnet, Tyjae Spears. And then tier 12, is this just the handcuff tier?
Yep.
Tank Bigsby. I mean, it's interesting to call Tank Bigsby a handcuff when he was kind of their lead running back last year. So he could move up. And Jaden Blue, Trey Benson, Ray Davis, Roshan Johnson, Braylon Allen, Bashal Tootin, Tyler Algier, Jalen Wright, Will Shipley. Any reason why Tank Bigsby's in tier 12 and not tier 11?
I don't know which Jaguars running back I like the best. You asked this question on Sports Network yesterday. Which backfield battle do you want to watch? I don't know if we even mentioned Jacksonville because it's so crazy to me. I'm hoping it's Etienne just because I think he's got still potentially the most upside. But Bigsby was a better runner by leaps and bounds last year than Etienne. Just was significantly dwarfed in the passing game, and that's kind of why for the format here where I come out on it. And Tootin, I mean, look, there's a coaching change and a new running back added. And that always, should raise some red flags about what are they going to do, especially when the lead guy was coming off a disappointing season last year. And is Tank Bigsby going to get those opportunities? So it's kind of just really an unknown for me that this is one of those things that could change as the process goes on.
So after tier 12, which is Bigsby, Blue, Jaden Blue, Trey Benson, Ray Davis, Roshan Johnson, Braylon Allen, Bashal Tootin, Tyler Algier, Jalen Wright, Will Shipley. We get tier 13, Dylan Sampson and Jerome Ford are both in there. Nick Chubb, Marshawn Lloyd, Rico Dowdle. Remember him? I do. I never forget his name. Raheem Mostert. Tier 14 is just more of the same, basically a lot of rookies there. Ian, before we go, Heath, you have a look on your face like I said something wrong.
No, I don't think you said anything wrong at all.
Okay, good.
I think Thomas had something to say. You didn't give him a chance.
Yeah, I was just wondering why you just ignored Thomas.
No, the new StreamYard setup is messing me up. I don't even know why it popped up here.
That's what I thought. I was like, there's no way he meant to pop up.
No, I removed the screen and then all of a sudden I'm on. So that was unintentional.
Yeah, see, Thomas and I have like an ESP. I know he doesn't mean to pop on there. Ian, do you have a handcuff strategy? Do you have any particular ones that you like to draft? What do you think?
Jalen Wright's been my most drafted running back of the offseason so far because I think just at its core, if Achane gets hurt, Jalen Wright's probably the next guy up. And also, this is an offense where we saw Raheem Mostert as the de facto RB2 alongside Achane scored 21 freaking touchdowns. So we'll see who exactly gets that goal line role. There's a chance I'm wrong and Wright's not going to be the 1B, and we're going to have Ollie Gordon or, God forbid, Alexander Madison getting too many carries for us to get. But, man, I just think, again, that late, like you can actually talk yourself into Jalen Wright. Having one of those, Najee or Ramondre Stevenson-esque roles, he's just at a fraction of the price. So my biggest thing is, look, we don't know which one of these guys is going to be the breakout. Last year, Chase Brown happened to get the Zach Moss injury, so he got to take over. Who's to say that couldn't have been Trey Benson or Blake Corum if their team starting running back ended up being the one getting injured? But my biggest piece of advice would just be, once you have, hopefully your 5 wide receivers in the top 50, top 55 players there, you got your quarterback, you got your tight end, get as many of these handcuffs as possible, because all those guys, basically in the tier 11, tier 12 tiers going on, those guys are one injury away from being on the cover of every single waiver wire magazine in the industry. So, yeah, it's cool if you can bid for them, but the only thing cooler than that is if you already have them sitting on your bench. So I just see some people, again, getting the multiple quarterbacks, multiple tight ends, God forbid a second DST or something like that. Again, would just really caution, don't worry about having, all these even positions, because it's those handcuff running backs who have the best chance of seeing their rankings skyrocket between now and week 1.
Ian, I have a question for you that's not fantasy related.
Sure.
So you work with a guy that we're very close with in Nando DeFino. I think you're married, right? Correct? You said you visited your wife's family. So if you had a friend, like close friend, introduce you to your wife, would you be inclined to put that friend in your wedding party? Make him one of your groomsmen?
I'd feel like I would be obligated to.
Right. It'd be kind of like if you had a show with 3 other guys, you wouldn't only invite 2 of them to the wedding. You'd invite all 3 of them.
Couldn't even imagine doing something like
that. One I feel much worse about than the Nando thing. Look, Nando's like a top 15 friend of mine. I couldn't get him at the wedding party. I have closer friends.
It's tough, Adam, because then you got the +1s for everyone. You got the family that you feel obligated. So I feel you, but also come on.
Well, Nando's wife was in the wedding party, so it would have been easy to throw him in there. But it's just he didn't make the cut. I actually had to ask.
Now he just sends you ornaments.
Yeah, I had to ask Nando and Jamie the day of my wedding, or maybe the day before. I was like, please don't embarrass me today. I was like, this is my wedding day. Please don't do anything. And isn't that sad? Isn't that sad that I had to go there? It came through. I thank them for that. Ian, thanks for coming on, man. It was great talking to you. Really interesting stuff. So tell us about your content and where we can find everything and all that.
Appreciate you guys. Yeah, fantasylife.com. Just had, a new site come out, rankings, guillotine content. Absolutely love that form of fantasy. Just been really getting into it recently. So trying to do something new, I would advise that. Just real quickly on guillotine, guys, like my favorite parts of it is, 1, if your team sucks, you get cut, you finish last in the week, your season's over. You don't have these 2 months of, managing this team that's already dead in the water. And then just the waiver wires are absolutely electric, because I'm sure you guys are like me where, you can only look at Will Shipley so many weeks before it's like, good God, man, this is a slog. Meanwhile, guillotine leagues, a team with CeeDee Lamb gets chopped. Oh my gosh, all of a sudden I have, a freaking awesome time on Tuesday or Wednesday trying to get those dudes. So shout out to guillotine leagues. But otherwise, yeah, you can catch me on the Fantasy Life Show Monday through Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern. Would love to get some of you guys on there at some point. So we'll do that another day. But yeah, appreciate you guys having me on. Fun time, dudes.
And Ian will have an FFT Open League if you want to join it. Monday, July 21st, 7 p.m. Eastern. All 24 of the leagues are open for you to purchase spots in, 11 spots per league. And when we sell them out, $66,000 for St. Jude. For Jamie, Heath, and Ian, I am Adam. Oh, and Thomas, who popped on unintentionally. I am Adam. We will talk to you tomorrow with wide receiver tiers on Fantasy Football Today.